Okay, it's a quick video on how I make my own Ormus. Quite simply, I'm going to be using 1.5 cups of Celtic sea salt, and that's going to fill approximately a half-gallon container right here, which is about 6 cups of water. And the Celtic sea salt is going to be filtered first through a coffee filter. So we're going to use a coffee filter here to filter out the Celtic sea salt. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to fill this fella up here with water, and then we're going to run the water through here, and then bring in the Celtic sea salt water down through here. It's going to be purified by the coffee filter. Now, some of the things you're going to need to start making your own Ormus is coffee filters, of course. I use a pH calibration fluid for the pH meter. I like to use a digital pH meter because it's so much more faster. Quite simply, I'll put the pH calibration fluid into the jar right here, fill it up, and then I'll calibrate it till I get a pH of 7, and that basically sets the pH meter. Another thing, this is the screwdriver for adjusting the, calibrating the pH meter. Another thing you're going to need is sodium hydroxide. And I'll be using 2 tablespoons of sodium hydroxide right here. And I'm going to be pouring that into another jar, and I'll be putting the lye water into this dropper bottle. And basically what will happen is we'll put the lye in here. Alright, this is a video on removing the impurities from the Celtic sea salt. Quite simply, what I've done is I've put 1.5 cups of Celtic sea salt into this water right here. And I actually stirred it up. It's important that you stir it up because the crystals dissolve a lot faster when you stir it up. I've almost finished this batch here through filtering it. So this is the coffee filter right here, and the Ormus is being, well, not the Ormus, but the Celtic sea salt is running through the coffee filter and down into the water. But something very important first. First, I run it through a strainer right here. This is very important, because if you don't do this, it can end up going through about almost 7 times as much coffee filters as you would normally use without this process. Now what I do is I get this water right here and I run it through a rough sieve like this. Okay, fill that up. Now basically what this does is this removes the larger particles first through the steel sieve. Okay, once that's been done, I basically take the cup and then I pour it through the coffee filter like this, like so. Now you guys can see that. And you guys can see that. But basically it filters it through the coffee filter. Now if you don't use the sieve first, you end up going through, like I said earlier, about 7 or 8 filters per cup. When you pour the cup up here, you go through a lot of coffee filters. So it's very important that you use a sieve first, run it through the sieve, and then run the sieve, once it's gone through there, run it through the filter. And this will take out the majority of the contaminants. I mean, you can already see the results. As you can see, this water here, this is filtered, and this is unfiltered. So we put them together side by side. You can see the big difference. You see, this is filtered Celtic sea salt. This is filtered with fine coffee filter, and this is unfiltered. So it makes a big difference when you filter it properly. So anyway, that's just a quick video on how to properly filter out the contaminants of the Celtic sea salt. In the next clip, we'll go ahead and make the Ormus using the... Alright, we've just finished filtering out all the impurities. That's the impurities that come out. And right now what we have is a beautiful, crystal clear, purified water of Celtic sea salt. Nice and clear, all the contaminants removed. And that will actually make it a lot more easier for us to make the Ormus. What we're going to do right now is we're going to make the sodium hydroxide lye solution. This is basically the sodium hydroxide lye right here. As you can see, I'm wearing gloves. And quite simply, we put 1 cup of distilled water. This is distilled water, remember. For some reason distilled water mixes with the lye and does a good job. So I put 1 cup of distilled water in here, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sodium hydroxide. You don't want to use paper when you do this, you want to use glass, because the paper will actually be chewed and burned out by the sodium hydroxide. I'm also wearing safety glasses when I'm doing this, because this is very, very dangerous and it's very caustic. That's why it's called caustic soda, because it's caustic. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put the 2 tablespoons in there. Now what I'm going to very carefully do is put the cap on, because the sodium hydroxide has a tendency to crystallize on the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's starting to crystallize there on the very bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to gently shake that up carefully and make sure it's all mixed up. So we'll go ahead and gently, carefully shake that up. Make sure she's all mixed up. And to be very careful we don't get any on our clothes. Yeah, okay. Now you can see we're shaking it up carefully. And right now the bottle is getting very hot. So let's go ahead and dissolve the rest of the crystals on the very bottom. If you gently stir it, the lye will eventually all completely dissolve. Eventually. Now I should be using a aluminum fork, because this is getting very hot right now. But it's stirring up, clearing up pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the sodium hydroxide to this bottle right here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but this is a dropper bottle. And what I do is I put the dropper bottle in here, and I allow the dropper bottle to absorb the sodium hydroxide through the suction. And that's all you need. You don't need a lot. This is a little bit of sodium hydroxide, probably even 1/3 or 1/10 full is all you need. And what we're going to do is we're going to add this to the Ormus, to the water to make the Ormus. On the next clip I'll go ahead and show you how that's done. So stand by. Okay, right now we're going to start making the Ormus. I got my lye, I got the pH meter, and we got purified Celtic seawater. I'll go ahead and turn the pH meter on. And you guys can see that, but right now the pH is at around 6.4, 6.5. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding the lye right now. And as I start adding the lye, I'll gently mix in the lye with the water. And right now the pH meter, and you guys can see that, but she's moving up to 7.4, 7.5, 7.6. And we're going to go as high as 10.3. And then by that time the Ormus will start falling out of the water. Anyway, the next clip we'll go ahead and show the Ormus in the water after it's fallen out, because this takes a lot of concentration, a lot of effort. So we'll show that in the next clip. Okay. See, right now we're at pH 10.3. If you look closely enough, you'll see like a white cloudy mist. I know it's really, really hard to see. But what's happened right now is the Ormus is come out of the water. Now, if you guys can see it right here on the side, but I'll see if I can bring it in here. You see that white mist? That's the Ormus. That's all Ormus right there. And I didn't go as high as 10.5. I wanted to go about 10.3 maximum, because at 10.3, 10.2, the Ormus starts falling out at about 10.0. So as you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that, but we got a really good batch of Ormus out of here. It's also around the full moon period, so we're doing really well on that also. So anyway, that's the Ormus, and that's basically how the Ormus is harvested. So we got a really good batch here, and thank you for watching. Have a great day. I'm just trying to get a very good view of the Ormus right here, see if you guys can see this or not. But I'll put the fork on here. Let me go ahead and change the camera view here so we can see it a little bit more clearly. But they look like white snowflakes. You see? It's kind of like a white spider web. It looked like a white spider web. But basically this is the Ormus right here that we just harvested. As you can see, it's like a white milky type substance. You see? And we harvested this around the full moon, so we've got a lot of Ormus right here. It's like a milky, flaky liquid. It's pretty amazing stuff. And so that's basically the Ormus we just harvested. Now what's going to happen is we're going to let this sit overnight. And then what's going to happen is these white flakes are going to settle to the bottom right here. And they're going to be compressed in the morning. So we're going to let it sit for about 8 hours overnight. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rinse this 3 times. It's very easy to rinse. Basically we just pour the water out. We leave the settlement in the bottom, which is in the Ormus. And then we pour in a new batch of water. Mix it up gently, stir it with the fork, and we'll let that sit again for another night. And we'll do this 2 more times, and then on the 3rd time we'll pour the water out, and then we'll leave the Ormus in the bottom, and then we're going to go ahead and put it into a glass jar and bottle it. And basically that's it. That's all there is to it. But I'm very pleased with this batch. This batch came out really good. And I believe the reason this batch came out really good was because we purified the water really well. And so when we did that, by purifying the water really good, we got a good batch of Ormus. And also it's around the full moon. So we'll let this settle overnight, rinse it 3 times, and that's pretty much it. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I wish you all a great day. Thank you, bye.